Kiara had broken every rule to reach a child no one else would see. She had gone from invisible server to the woman who taught a billionaire how to love again. But the night she and Tae-hyung nearly kissed in a midnight kitchen, everything changed. Someone had been watching. And in 3 days, whispers became weapons. Now, as scandal threatens to tear apart the family they've built, Kiara faces an impossible choice: walk away to protect them, or stay and fight a world determined to keep them apart. Because some families aren't born. They're chosen. And some loves are worth any price. The mansion that once felt like a mausoleum is about to become a battlefield. But it all began in a midnight kitchen, when two hearts finally spoke the truth they'd been hiding. Everything else, Kiara echoed. Including Yuna? The words hung in the air, bold and borderline inappropriate. But Tae-hyung didn't recoil. Instead, he met her gaze with naked honesty. Including my marriage. My wife, Yuna's mother, tried. God, she tried to make it work. But I was never there. Always at the office, always traveling, always putting the company first because that's what Kim does. And when Yuna was born deaf, when my wife needed me most. He stopped, his hands clenching around the mug. I failed them both. And then she was gone, and I was left with a daughter I didn't know how to reach in guilt that no amount of success could erase. Kiara's heart ached for him. She saw it clearly now. The walls he had built weren't born of coldness but of self-protection, a defense mechanism against a grief he had never properly processed. You're reaching her now, Kiara said softly. Because of you. Tae-hyung looked up, and the intensity in his gaze stole her breath. You gave me back my daughter, Kiara. How do I possibly repay that? You already have. You gave me a job, a home. That's not enough. He stood abruptly, and suddenly the island between them felt insignificant. He moved around it, stopping close enough that Kiara had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. You see people, Kiara. Really see them. You saw Yuna when everyone else looked away. You saw worth where others saw burden. And somehow, without even trying, you've made me see things too. See myself. See what I've been missing by hiding behind duty and responsibility. Tae-hyung. His name felt dangerous on her lips, intimate. I can't stop thinking about you, he said, the admission rough, as if torn from somewhere deep inside. The way you laugh with Yuna. The way you move through this cold house and make it feel warm. The way you look in the morning light when you're teaching, so focused and passionate that you forget to be invisible. You have no idea how beautiful you are. Kiara's pulse hammered in her throat. She should step back, should remind him of the impossibility of this, should protect them both from the inevitable pain. But she was frozen, caught in the gravity of his presence. His hand lifted, slowly, as if moving through water. His fingers hovered near her face, and Kiara could feel the heat of him even without contact. His eyes searched hers, asking permission, offering her the chance to refuse. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. His fingertips ghosted along her jaw, the touch so light it might have been imagined. But the electricity that shot through her was real, undeniable. She watched his eyes darken, saw the way his breathing changed, shallow and uneven. This is impossible, he whispered, but his hand remained, cradling her face with a tenderness that made her want to weep. I know, Kiara breathed. You work for me. The world would never accept. I know. I could ruin everything you've worked for. Your reputation, your position. I know. But she didn't pull away. They stood there, suspended in a moment that felt both endless and fleeting. Kiara could see the war in his eyes, desire battling with responsibility, wanting clashing with wisdom. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and she leaned into the touch without meaning to, her eyes fluttering closed. She felt him lean closer, felt his breath against her forehead. Another second, another heartbeat, and something irrevocable would happen. The sound of footsteps in the hallway shattered the moment like glass. Tae-hyung jerked back, his hand dropping as if burned. They stood frozen as the footsteps passed, a security guard on rounds, from the sound of the heavy boots, and continued down the corridor without pausing. Reality crashed back in. Kiara saw the shift in Tae-hyung's expression, the walls slamming back into place. Professional distance reasserted itself in the stiffening of his shoulders, the careful step backward he took. "I apologize," he said, his voice returning to that cool, formal tone she had heard in the restaurant. "That was inappropriate. It won't happen again." The words hurt more than they should have. Kiara wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. "Of course. I understand. You should get some rest. We have Yuna's assessment with the education specialist tomorrow." "Yes. Good night, Mr. Kim." She saw him flinch at the return to formality, but he nodded. "Good night, Kiara." She walked away on unsteady legs, leaving her tea untouched on the counter. She didn't look back, but she could feel his eyes on her until she turned the corner. Back in her room, Kiara pressed her back against the closed door and touched her jaw where his fingers had been. Her skin still tingled with the ghost of his touch. She was in trouble. Deep, dangerous trouble that had nothing to do with gossip or propriety, and everything to do with the way her heart had cracked open in that kitchen, revealing feelings she had no right to have. What she didn't know, what she couldn't see, was Mrs. Choi standing in the shadows of the servants' stairwell, her phone in hand, her expression triumphant. The housekeeper had seen enough. And in the morning, the whispers would begin. The whispers started as whispers always did, quiet, insidious, spreading through the household like poison in the water. Kiara felt the shift before she understood its source. The already cool treatment from the staff turned glacial. Conversations stopped when she entered the rooms. Eyes followed her with barely concealed contempt. It took 3 days for the whispers to reach beyond the mansion walls. Kiara was in the garden with Yuna, practicing plant names in sign language, when Tae-hyung's assistant appeared at the garden gate. The young man, polished, efficient, and usually professionally cordial, barely met her eyes. "Miss Kiara, Mr. Kim requests your presence in his study. Immediately." The tone sent ice down her spine. Yuna looked up, her small face creasing with concern, picking up on the tension even without hearing the words. Kiara forced a smile and signed, "I'll be right back. Keep practicing. The walk to Tae-hyung's study felt like a march to execution. The assistant led her through corridors that suddenly felt hostile, past staff members who no longer bothered to hide their stares. By the time they reached the heavy oak doors of the study, Kiara's hands were trembling. The assistant knocked once, then opened the door without waiting for a response. "Miss Kiara, sir." Tae-hyung stood behind his massive desk, but he wasn't alone. A woman sat in one of the leather chairs facing the desk, older, elegant, with a kind of beauty that had been expensively maintained. Her posture radiated authority and wealth, from the perfectly tailored Chanel suit to the tasteful jewelry that probably cost more than Kiara would earn in 5 years. But it was her eyes that struck Kiara, sharp, assessing, and utterly cold. "Come in, Kiara," Tae-hyung said. His voice was carefully neutral, but Kiara could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his mouth. She entered, acutely aware of her simple gray uniform in the presence of such refined elegance. The assistant closed the door behind her with a soft click that sounded like a cell door locking. "This is my mother," Tae-hyung said. "Chairwoman Kim Myung." The woman didn't rise. She simply turned her head, examining Kiara with the clinical detachment of someone evaluating livestock. The silence stretched, deliberately uncomfortable. "So you're the African maid causing such a stir," Chairwoman Kim said finally, her Korean crisp and precise. "I must admit, I expected. I'm not sure what I expected. Someone more obviously conniving, perhaps." Kiara felt the insult like a slap, but kept her expression neutral. She bowed respectfully. "It's an honor to meet you, Chairwoman Kim." "Is it?" The older woman's eyebrow arched. "I wonder if you'll still think so when we're finished here." "Mother," Tae-hyung's voice carried a warning. "Don't." Chairwoman Kim raised one perfectly manicured hand. "You've indulged in this situation long enough. It's time for adult supervision." She turned her attention back to Kiara. "Do you know what I do when problems arise in our business ventures, miss?" "Kiara Omondi, ma'am." "Miss Omondi. I eliminate them. Swiftly and completely, before they can metastasize into something more damaging." She leaned forward slightly. "You are a problem." "Mother, that's enough." "Is it?" Chairwoman Kim's gaze snapped to her son. "Are you aware that your household staff has been gossiping for 3 days about late-night encounters between you and this woman? That Mrs. Choi witnessed you in the kitchen together, in sleepwear, in what she described as a compromising situation." Kiara's stomach dropped. So that's what this was. She had known someone might have seen them, but she had hoped. "Nothing happened," Tae-hyung said, his voice hard. "Intent matters as much as action in the court of public opinion," his mother countered. "Do you think the media won't seize on this? Do you think your business rivals won't use it to undermine you?" The great Kim Tae-hyung, seduced by the help. Her voice dripped with disdain. "It's tawdry. It's beneath you." "She's not the help," Tae-hyung said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. "She's Yuna's companion and teacher. And she's done more for my daughter in 3 weeks than anyone has done in her entire life." "How noble." Chairwoman Kim stood, her heels clicking against the hardwood. "And when the tabloids get hold of this story, and they will, because scandals like this always leak, what will that do to Yuna? Have you thought about that? The poor deaf child whose father is carrying on with the African maid. Do you think the sympathy will be for you? For her?" She gestured dismissively at Kiara. "Or will they pity Yuna for being caught in such a sordid situation?" Kiara felt each word like a physical blow. The woman was right, and they all knew it. The world would twist this into something ugly, and Yuna would be the one to suffer. "I'll resign," Kiara said quietly. "If that's what's best for Yuna, I'll leave." "No." Tae-hyung's response was immediate and forceful. He moved from behind the desk, positioning himself almost protectively between Kiara and his mother. "You're not going anywhere." "Tae-hyung, be reasonable," Chairwoman Kim began. "I am being reasonable. For the first time in years, I'm being completely reasonable." He turned to face his mother fully, and Kiara saw something she had never seen in him before: defiance. "You want to talk about what's best for Yuna? Fine. Let's talk about it." Yuna was drowning in silence before Kiara came. She was so isolated, so lost, that she barely responded to anything or anyone. Including me. Especially me. And now? She laughs. She communicates. She's thriving. If you think I'm going to destroy that because of gossip, you don't know me at all. I know you're letting your judgment be clouded by— Chairwoman Kim's eyes flicked to Kiara with undisguised contempt, inappropriate feelings. My feelings are none of your business. They are when they threaten the family reputation. When they threaten the company. I won't allow you to throw away everything your father built because you've developed an infatuation with someone completely unsuitable. The word unsuitable hung in the air, laden with implications. Unsuitable because of Kiara's position. Unsuitable because of her race. Unsuitable because she didn't fit into the carefully constructed world of Korean high society. Kiara had heard it all before, in different words, different languages. But hearing it here, in front of Tae-hyung, made her want to disappear into the floor. "Get out," Tae-hyung said, his voice quiet but absolutely lethal. Chairwoman Kim blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said get out. This is my home. Yuna is my daughter. And my life is my own. You don't get a vote anymore." For the first time, the older woman looked genuinely shocked. "You're choosing her? Over your family? Over your responsibilities?" "I'm choosing Yuna. I'm choosing her happiness and well-being over appearance and reputation. If you can't support that, then yes, I'm choosing differently than you would." Mother and son stared at each other, years of complicated history crackling in the space between them. Finally, Chairwoman Kim picked up her designer purse, her movements sharp with suppressed fury. "You're making a mistake," she said coldly. "And when it all falls apart, and it will, don't come crying to me to fix it." "I won't," Tae-hyung promised. The door closed behind her with a forceful click. The silence that followed felt heavy, oppressive. Kiara stood frozen, her mind reeling from what had just transpired. "I'm sorry," Tae-hyung said finally, turning to face her. "You shouldn't have had to endure that." "She's not wrong," Kiara whispered. "About the scandal, about what people will say." "I don't care what people say." "But you should. For Yuna's sake, for the company." "Kiara." He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands coming up to grip her shoulders. "Look at me." She did, and what she saw in his eyes stole her breath. There was anger there, yes, but also something else. Something fierce and protective and undeniable. "I spent years caring what people thought. Years maintaining appearances and sacrificing everything real for the sake of reputation. And all it got me was a lonely house and a daughter who didn't know me. I'm not doing that anymore. Not with Yuna. And not with you. Tae-hyung. I know this is complicated. I know there are obstacles, real ones, not just my mother's prejudices. But I also know that what you've brought into our lives is worth fighting for. Yuna deserves that fight. And maybe." He paused, his grip on her shoulders tightening slightly. "Maybe I do too." Kiara's eyes burned with unshed tears. "I'm just a maid from Nairobi who learned sign language from a neighbor. I don't belong in your world." "My world is cold and empty and cruel," Tae-hyung said fiercely. "You belong in the world I want to build. The one where Yuna can be herself without shame. Where kindness matters more than pedigree. Where," he stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "Where I can be more than just the Kim heir. Where I can be happy." The word seemed to surprise him as much as it surprised her. Happy. Such a simple concept, and yet so elusive. "What are you saying?" Kiara asked, afraid to hope, afraid to believe. "I'm saying stay. I'm saying let them talk. I'm saying that whatever this is between us, it's worth exploring. If you want to. This could destroy you. Or it could save me." His hands slid from her shoulders to her hands, holding them between his own. "I'm tired of being saved from the wrong things, Kiara. I'm tired of protecting an image instead of protecting what matters. You matter. Yuna's happiness matters. Everything else is just noise." Kiara looked down at their joined hands, his pale against her dark skin, the physical manifestation of everything that made them unsuitable by his mother's standards. And yet they fit. They fit perfectly. "Okay," she whispered. Okay. I'll stay. Not because you're paying me or because Yuna needs me, but because... She met his eyes, finding courage in their depths. Because I want to see where this goes too. The smile that broke across Tae-hyung's face transformed him completely. It was joy pure and unguarded, and it made him look years younger. He lifted her hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent electricity shooting up her arms. "Thank you," he breathed. The moment was shattered by a soft knock at the door. They stepped apart quickly, though not as far apart as they might have a week ago. Tae-hyung's assistant entered, his expression carefully blank. "Sir, you have a call from the director of the Charity Gala. He's requesting confirmation of your attendance and asking if you'll be bringing guests." Tae-hyung glanced at Kiara, something like mischief flickering in his eyes. "Tell him yes. 2 guests. My daughter and her companion." The assistant's eyebrows rose fractionally, but he nodded. "Of course, sir. I'll make the arrangements." When the door closed again, Kiara turned to Tae-hyung with wide eyes. "A charity gala? That's a public event. The media will be there." "I know. People will see us together. They'll take photos, ask questions." "I know." He stepped closer again, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. "I told you, Kiara. I'm done hiding what matters. And you matter." She leaned into his touch, her heart hammering with equal parts fear and exhilaration. They were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed, stepping into a spotlight that would expose every vulnerability. But looking into Tae-hyung's eyes, seeing the determination there, Kiara found herself willing to take that step. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The Seoul Grand Hyatt ballroom glittered like a fairy tale, all crystal chandeliers and golden light. 500 of the city's most powerful and privileged gathered to donate money they would never miss to causes they would never think about again. Kiara stood at the entrance, Yuna's hand clutched in hers, and fought the urge to flee. The dress Tae-hyung had insisted on buying her was beautiful, a deep emerald silk that complemented her skin tone perfectly, elegant without being ostentatious. A stylist had come to the house that afternoon, doing her hair in intricate braids woven with gold thread, her makeup subtle but flawless. She looked like she belonged here. But she knew better. "You look beautiful," Tae-hyung murmured beside her. He was devastating in a black tuxedo, every inch the billionaire prince. But his eyes were warm as they traveled over her, appreciation and something deeper flickering in their depths. "I look terrified," Kiara corrected. "That too." His hand found the small of her back, a gesture of support and possession that sent warmth flooding through her. "But mostly beautiful." Yuna tugged on Kiara's hand, her face bright with excitement. The girl wore a purple dress that made her look like a little princess, her hair done in curls that bounced when she moved. She signed rapidly, asterisk so many lights. "It's like a palace. Asterisk. It is beautiful," Kiara signed back, grateful for the distraction from her nerves. They entered the ballroom, and Kiara immediately felt the shift. Heads turned. Conversations paused. The woman on Tae-hyung's arm was not who they expected, not the usual society beauty or business connection. She was foreign black, obviously out of place in this homogeneous sea of wealth and privilege. The whispers started immediately. "Is that Kim Tae-hyung? Who is she? I heard he hired an African maid for his daughter. Surely that's not her. He wouldn't bring the help to an event like this. Unless the rumors are true." Kiara's steps faltered, but Tae-hyung's hand pressed more firmly against her back, steadying her. "Eyes on me," he murmured. "Not them. They don't matter." But they did matter. These were his peers, his business associates, the social circle that controlled everything from financial markets to political influence. Alienating them would have consequences far beyond gossip. They made it 3 steps into the ballroom before the first reporter appeared, a woman with a camera and a smile sharp as knives. Mr. Kim. A moment for Channel 5 News. Tae-hyung's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. The reporter's eyes immediately latched onto Kiara and Yuna, calculating and predatory. We heard rumors about your daughter appearing tonight. This is the first time she's been seen publicly in years. And who is this with you? This is Yuna's companion, Miss Kiara Romandi, Tae-hyung said, his voice cool and professional. She's been instrumental in my daughter's development. A companion, the reporter repeated, her tone suggesting she thought it was something else entirely. And where is Miss Omandi from? Kenya, Kiara answered before Tae-hyung could, lifting her chin. She wouldn't hide. Fascinating. And how exactly did you come to work for Mr. Kim? The question was loaded, implying a dozen unsavory scenarios. Before Kiara could formulate a response, Yuna tugged urgently on her hand. The girl's face had gone pale, her eyes wide with growing panic. Too many people, too much noise and movement. Yuna was overwhelmed, overstimulated. Kiara immediately crouched down, blocking out the reporter and the cameras. Too loud. She signed. Yuna nodded frantically. Want to leave? The girl shook her head, signing with trembling hands. Asterisk, I want to stay with you and Daddy. But I'm scared. Asterisk. I'm right here, Kiara signed, pulling Yuna into a gentle embrace. You're safe. The reporter, seeing an opportunity, moved closer. Is the child all right? We heard she has special needs. She's deaf, Tae-hyung said sharply, stepping between the reporter and his daughter. Not fragile. And this conversation is over. But the damage was done. Other reporters had noticed the commotion, cameras swiveling toward them like predators scenting blood. They swarmed, microphones thrust forward, questions overlapping into an incomprehensible barrage. Mr. Kim, is it true you're romantically involved with your daughter's caretaker? How long has this relationship been going on? Don't you think it's inappropriate to bring her to an event like this? Is it true she was just a waitress before you hired her? What do you say to critics who think this is a publicity stunt? Yuna pressed against Kiara, trembling. The girl's hands moved frantically, signing too much, too much, too much over and over. Kiara tried to shield her, tried to create a bubble of calm in the chaos, but the crowd pressed closer. Then one reporter went too far. Miss Omandi, is it true you seduced Mr. Kim to get a better position? And how do you respond to accusations that you're taking advantage of his disabled daughter? The words were vile, calculated to provoke. But it was the hand that reached out to grab Yuna's shoulder, trying to turn her toward the camera, that shattered Tae-hyung's composure. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. Tae-hyung's hand shot out, gripping the reporter's wrist and removing it from his daughter with controlled force. His other arm swept Kiara and Yuna behind him, his body a shield between them and the mob. Enough. The single word cracked through the ballroom like a whip. The fury in Tae-hyung's voice silenced the crowd, reporters and guests alike freezing at the controlled violence in his tone. You will not touch my daughter. You will not speak to her or about her without respect. And you will not, his eyes swept the crowd, landing on each reporter with laser focus. You will not insult the woman who has shown my family more compassion and kindness than any of you are capable of understanding. The ballroom had gone silent. Hundreds of eyes watched as Kim Tae-hyung, known for his icy control, vibrated with protective rage. Kiara is here because I invited her. Because she is important to my daughter and to me. If any of you have a problem with that, you're welcome to leave my presence and never approach me for business, favor, or comment again. A camera flashed. Then another. The moment was being captured, would be on every news site and social media platform within the hour. Tae-hyung's public claiming of Kiara, his defense of her against the very society he belonged to. He turned, his expression softening as he looked down at Yuna and Kiara. "Let's go." They walked out of the ballroom together, Tae-hyung's security team materializing to clear a path. The silence followed them, heavy with shock and speculation. By the time they reached the limousine, Kiara was shaking. Inside the car, Yuna immediately curled into Kiara's side, her small body still trembling. Kiara held her, stroking her hair and signing soothing words, but her own composure was fracturing. "I'm sorry," Tae-hyung said, his voice rough. "I'm so sorry. I thought I could protect you. I thought if we faced them together." "You can't," Kiara interrupted quietly. "Protect us. Not from this. Not from what the world thinks." Silence filled the car as they pulled away from the hotel. Tae-hyung's jaw worked, his hands clenched into fists on his knees. Finally, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I had this prepared. Just in case." He held it out to Kiara. "It's a plane ticket. First class to Nairobi. And a bank transfer, enough to set up your sister, to give your family security for years. You can leave tonight. Disappear before the story breaks fully. Start over somewhere they can't touch you." Kiara stared at the envelope, her vision blurring with tears. It was an escape. A way out. Everything she would need to protect herself and her family from the scandal that was about to erupt. It was also a goodbye. "You want me to leave," she whispered. "I want you to be safe," Tae-hyung said, his voice breaking. "I want you to have the life you deserve, without my world destroying it. I was selfish, asking you to stay. Selfish thinking I could keep you and Yuna safe, just by wanting it badly enough. But tonight proved I can't. So I'm giving you a choice. The choice I should have given you from the beginning." Kiara looked down at Yuna, the little girl who had become her heart. Then at Tae-hyung, this complicated, damaged man who had somehow become her home. The envelope in his hand represented safety, security, everything logical. But logic had never been what drove her. Kiara took the envelope. Tae-hyung's expression crumbled, resignation and grief warring in his eyes. She held his gaze as she slowly, deliberately, tore the envelope in half. Then in half again. And again, until the pieces fluttered to the floor of the limousine like snow. "I'm not leaving," she said firmly. "Not Yuna. And not you. Kiara. You think I don't know what I'm choosing? I know exactly what I'm choosing. I'm choosing a life where I matter, where what I do makes a difference. Where I'm seen and valued for who I am, not where I came from or what I look like." She reached out, taking his hand. "I'm choosing you. Both of you. And if the world has a problem with that, then the world can adjust." Tae-hyung stared at her, something like a breaking through his anguish. "You're going to be destroyed by association with me. Or you're going to be elevated by association with me," Kiara countered. "Stop assuming I'm the weak one in this equation, Tae-hyung. I've survived in foreign countries where I didn't speak the language. I've endured prejudice and dismissal and being treated as invisible every day. I'm stronger than you think. Strong enough for this. The question is, are you?" A laugh broke from him, strangled and disbelieving. Then his hand was in her hair, pulling her close, his forehead resting against hers. "I don't deserve you," he breathed. "Probably not," Kiara agreed, a watery smile breaking through her tears. "But you're stuck with me anyway." Yuna's small hands appeared between them, signing with sleepy contentment, *family. "We're family now. Asterisk. And in that moment, in the back of a limousine fleeing a scandal, surrounded by torn pieces of an escape she had refused, Kiara had never felt more certain of anything in her life. They were family. And families fought for each other. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The scandal broke like a tidal wave. By morning, photos from the Charity Gala were everywhere. Tae-hyung's fury, Kiara's protective embrace of Yuna, the moment of defiance. The headlines were brutal. Billionaire Kim's secret romance with African Maid. From waitress to mansion, the Cinderella story that has Seoul talking. Kim Tae-hyung abandons propriety for foreign lover. But for every cruel headline, there was another story emerging. Videos from the gala had captured not just the confrontation, but the moments before, Yuna's panic, the reporter's aggressive grab, Kiara's gentle competence in calming the frightened child. Social media began to shift. Asterisk, this woman was protecting a scared deaf child while reporters attacked them. Maybe focus on that. Asterisk. Asterisk, Kim Tae-hyung defending his family is somehow a scandal? Y'all are weird. Asterisk. Asterisk, that little girl is smiling more in these photos than I've ever seen. Whatever Miss Kiara is doing, it's working. Asterisk. The narrative was evolving, splitting into camps. Traditional society clutched its pearls and demanded Tae-hyung conform. But a younger, more progressive audience saw something different. A man choosing love and his daughter's happiness over archaic social expectations. The shift came from an unexpected source. 3 days after the gala, Kiara was in the garden with Yuna when Tae-hyung appeared, his expression strange, somewhere between shock and something that might have been hope. "You need to see this," he said, pulling up a video on his phone. It was a press conference. On the screen, Chairwoman Kim My-young sat behind a podium, her expression as cold and controlled as ever. But her words were not what Kiara expected. "I have been asked to comment on recent events surrounding my son and his household. Let me be clear, family is sacred. My granddaughter's well-being is paramount. And if Miss Kiara Omondi has brought joy and progress to Yuna's life, then she has my respect, regardless of her background or my personal reservations. The Kim family does not bow to tabloid pressure or societal judgment. We make our own decisions about who belongs in our lives." It wasn't a warm endorsement. But it was protection, powerful, public protection from one of Korea's most influential women. Kiara looked up at Tae-hyung in shock. She changed her mind? "She's protecting the family reputation," Tae-hyung corrected. "But in doing so, she's protecting you too. It's the closest thing to approval we're likely to get." Over the following weeks, things began to stabilize. The scandal faded from front pages to gossip columns to occasional mentions. Some of Tae-hyung's business associates distanced themselves, but others, perhaps inspired by his defiance or simply pragmatic about his financial power, adapted. But the real change happened quietly, in the mansion that had once felt like a mausoleum. One evening, 6 weeks after the gala, Kiara was reading to Yuna in the library when Tae-hyung entered. But instead of speaking, he did something he had never done before. He sat beside Yuna and began to sign. "I'm sorry," his hand said, the movements awkward from disuse but clear. Asterisk, "I'm sorry I stopped talking to you this way. I'm sorry I let grief make me distant. But I'm here now. And I promise I will never stop seeing you again." Asterisk. Yuna's eyes went wide, filling with tears. Kiara's throat tightened as she watched the little girl launch herself into her father's arms, both of them crying and signing and holding each other with a desperate relief of a connection too long severed. "You knew," Kiara whispered when she could speak. "This whole time, you knew sign language." Tae-hyung looked up, still holding Yuna, tears on his own face. "My wife and I learned together when Yuna was diagnosed. It was our special language, the three of us. But after she died, I couldn't. Every sign reminded me of what I'd lost. So I stopped. I told myself it was too painful, but really I was just a coward. Hiding from grief by hiding from my daughter. What changed? You did. He reached out with one hand, pulling Kiara into their embrace. You showed me that language isn't about pain or loss. It's about connection. About love. You gave me back the courage to reach my daughter. To reach for happiness again. They sat there together, the three of them tangled in an embrace that blurred all lines of employer and employee, father and daughter, separate lives and shared hearts. 6 months later. The garden had always been beautiful, but now it was alive. Yuna raced through the pathways, no longer cautious and hidden but vibrant and free. She paused to sign something to her father, who was kneeling beside a flower bed, his suit jacket discarded and his sleeves rolled up as he helped the gardener plant new roses. Kiara watched from the terrace, a cup of tea in hand and a smile on her face. She wore simple clothes now, not the maid's uniform or the governess's dress, but comfortable jeans and a soft sweater. Her status in the household had evolved beyond definition. Not quite family, not quite staff. Something entirely their own. Miss Kiara? Mrs. Choi appeared beside her, the older woman's expression still austere but lacking its former hostility. Time and Chairwoman Kim's public support had forced an uneasy truce. There's a delivery for you. The package contained books, educational materials about deaf education, acceptance letters from Seoul National University's graduate program in special education. Kiara's hands trembled as she read the letter. Tae-hyung had done this, had arranged for her to pursue the dream she had abandoned years ago. The classes were scheduled around Yuna's lessons. The tuition was paid. She looked up to find him watching from the garden, Yuna perched on his shoulders. He didn't need to ask if she was happy, he could see it in her face. She signed across the distance, a message just for him. Thank you. I love you. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face into something young and unburdened. He signed back, the movements sure and confident now. I love you too. Both of you. My family. The scandals hadn't disappeared entirely. There were still whispers, still sidelong glances at events. Some doors had closed to them. But others had opened, opportunities to speak about deaf education, about cross-cultural understanding, about choosing love over expectation. And in the end, standing in a garden that was no longer a gilded cage but a home, Kiara realized that being seen, truly seen, had been worth every sacrifice. Yuna climbed down from her father's shoulders and ran to Kiara, signing with the unself-conscious joy of a child who knew she was loved. Tae-hyung followed, and when he reached them, he did something that still made Kiara's heart skip even after months together. He took her hand in front of the watching staff, the gardeners, anyone who might see. No hiding, no shame. Just a man holding the hand of the woman he loved, with his daughter between them, all three of them signing and laughing in their own private language that excluded no one but welcomed everyone. The billionaire who had learned to love. The maid who had taught him how. And the daughter who had brought them together. Not a scandal. Not a shame. Just a family, imperfect and unconventional and absolutely, fiercely theirs. And as the sun set over the garden, painting everything in gold, Kiara thought that perhaps this had always been her destiny, not to be invisible, but to be the one who helped others learn to see. To see past barriers, past prejudice, past fear. To see what really mattered. And what really mattered was standing right there, holding her hand, filling the silence with love louder than any words could ever be.